Okay, I suggest we start. And first, I'd like to give the floor to Irina Zaretska. Um, you know what her credentials are, but in addition to representing Justice for All program supported by USAID, but also Irina are the catalyst of mediation in Ukraine. And indeed, for many years now, wherever she is and whatever she does, she has always been supporting mediation, the idea of mediation. We are very glad to have you with us today, and thank you for your dedication and efforts you have been investing into developing the mediation. So the floor is yours. Thank you, Louisa. Thank you for your kind words. Indeed, I like mediation, and I try to do everything I can in order to assist uh, taking deep roots for mediation in Ukraine. I'd like to address all my colleagues and all the participants. And one of the experts said there are no colleagues among mediators, only friends. So, dear friends, I'm convinced that our meeting will be inspiring and useful. On behalf of David Bone, the team lead of my program that I represent, Justice for All program, USAID supported program, uh, we'd like to thank the Ukrainian Academy of Mediation, EU Consent and Bravo Justice programs, and all those who joined us. Would like to also thank you all. And right now we have almost 200 participants who have joined our meeting. Thank you for joining our team, and that is Justice for All program, has been supporting the judiciary, the government, the parliament, the bar, the schools of lawyers, the universities, assistance to create conditions for transparent justice system, which will ensure the rule of law and access to justice. In modern societies, the established ways of solving conflict are not always effective because oftentimes interests of one party or both parties are unsatisfied. A good alternative to improve access to justice and to relieve courts from their work, we can use mediation. For many years now, we've been trying to create conditions for mediation in Ukraine by spreading information, by educating people, by raising their awareness, by analyzing the bills on mediation, by giving recommendations. As far as pilot programs on pretrial mediation and judges and mediators, Ukrainian partners also receive expert support to encounter best practice for alternative dispute settlement and creating new ways of regulating disputes, including online mediation. Broad implementation of mediation requires better understanding by lawyers and the communities. Generally and traditionally, the law education has been mostly focused on preparing them to settle disputes in courts. Yet, this is only one of the ways. In 2019, with a new justice program, we supported the initiative of Ukrainian Academy of Mediation to develop a textbook for students of law, materials of which were developed by Ukrainian Academy of Mediation, while supporting medical schools and developing teaching or mediation disciplines, trying to improve the quality of education and involving new methods of teaching. Today, we will have presentations from many of the authors and contributors to the mediation textbook. If you leaf through the pages, you will see that it reflects a lot of love on the part of the authors. This happened in 2019. Today, we are supporting the updated version of this notebook, of this textbook, but things have changed. Since 2019, Ukraine has been under Russian aggression, and also in 2019, we had a COVID pandemic, which caused a lot of trouble and difficulties. All of these events created new challenges that Ukrainian people are now faced with. This includes the mediators and the general community. Uh, we recently received the law on mediation, and mediators demonstrated their unity in order to use mediation in a broader context. And these are just a few challenges that triggered the updates to this textbook. I personally admire these people. Despite the difficulties, they are creating the good. They're working for the good of this country, whether they are inside or outside the country, while defenders are defending Ukraine from the aggressive enemy. Mediation is doing its job and improving the conditions for dispute settlement in Ukraine. And I would like to take the opportunity and thank you for supporting Ukraine by all our partners. And I hope no missile and no drone will disrupt our work. Thank you for your attention. And I look forward to a good and useful conference. Thank you. Thank you, Reno, for your very kind words. Indeed, we feel the pain. And today, we have a very good opportunity to communicate online, discuss important things, in particular, the issue of mediation, when it's important to hear each other out and reach better understanding. And this is what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you again. And now I'd like to make a brief introduction, and then we'll pass on to Natalia so that we can actually get on with our presentations. I am the president of the Ukrainian Academy of Mediation. My name is Luisa Romanadze, and I will speak on behalf of the organization and the consent project as well. But today, we'll only talk about textbook. The textbook that we will be able to print soon. This project is supported by Justice for All program and consent program. And I would like to show you and tell you about how the idea came about. I will mostly focus on the first generation, the first edition, and then my colleagues will tell you about the updates to the second edition. So back in 2019, no textbook existed for lawyers on mediation, and oftentimes we felt that students knew more about mediation than experienced lawyers. So we understood how important the role of lawyers is in promoting mediation and how important it is to involve lawyers into this process. So as time goes by, we work with younger students and involve them into this process of dispute settlement through mediation. And now we work actively with students because we understand that they need to join the legal profession, understanding what mediation is, what it's about, when it is relevant to use, what the pros and cons are, and that's how the idea of writing this textbook came about. We involved representatives of universities from the East, West, South, and North, and we joined our efforts to create this textbook. We approached the universities who at the time had some master's programs or certificate programs on mediation, those who already had some experience in teaching mediation, and we're glad that they responded in a very positive way. And over the past 5 years, the textbook is now well recognized. There was a question in the chat, how you can get hold of it. Well, the first edition is available free of charge electronically. Anyone can download it. We printed a limited number of hardbacks, hardcover books, and all universities that train lawyers in mediation were supplied with these. You can find those copies in their libraries. We also sent copies to the Ministry of Justice, some other government agencies, even though it was a limited circulation and the demand was quite high. So we are quite glad that with support of the Justice for All program, we were able to quadruple the circulation of this textbook. And of course, we mostly will be circulating this textbook among the universities and not limiting to law departments, but also organs of government, professional associations of lawyers, etc. So the textbook has always been available online, free of charge. It is now well recognized and highly respected. It is written in an easy to understand language, featuring many examples and illustrations and pictures, the graphical materials, graphs and curves, and all of this is now widely used throughout Ukraine. However, the textbook was not everything that we were focusing on, because what we also wanted is this subject to be taught at universities. And we wanted to make sure that it's a quality program, and that more and more universities are adopting such a program. So to that end, we developed methodological recommendations for lecturers and university teachers on how to teach this, because it has keys to tests, etc. It's a methodological information which is limited to university fellows only. But so you can write to us info at mediation.ua, and if you need that methodological recommendation, we can send it to you, we can share it. It contains everything that a teacher at the university may need in order to teach this subject. So as far as methodological support, I think we've covered everything. It covers practical workshops, theoretical lectures. It also offers practical exercises, case studies, tests. In other words, everything that you need to teach such a subject at the university. And basically, this is a full package for any university to introduce this subject into their curriculum. We are glad that the standard of training of Masters of Law in 2022 was updated. Some changes were introduced. And since 2022, all universities training Masters of Law include this competence, the competence of, for all lawyers, called ability to use mediation and other legal alternative out-of-court settlement. What this means is that any lawyer, any master's program student will have to master this designated subject designed to train them to use mediation in their professional career. Of course, this is not a final stage. This is more like a theoretical introduction, but it's an important step forward. So this is the situation that where we are right now in Ukraine, and all master's degree students are aware of this. And since the new law was passed and the new standard is approved, we had to launch it, because a 5-year period is quite a long time.
What will the textbook of 2024 look like? I'm just talking about visual image. You will see the cover now. We have changed somehow its appearance, and it will be supported with methodological materials and we also renovate them. There will be model syllabus and some other important things, so that it corresponds to the requirements of today's education in the universities. So far, we have only visualization. It will be printed out closer to the end of August. We have renovated graphic information over there in view of the way some procedures, some issues are described in the law. We added some new visual information concerning mediation, because we have 3 different agreements at the level of law, for instance. And here you see the reference where you could follow the information. It will be open for everyone. And we are calling upon not only lawyers, but to representatives of different professions, different universities. It's very interesting. There is a lot of visual information, and that will be interesting not only for lawyers, definitely. I thank you. So follow the information, and you will be, so that you are the first to know that the textbook has been printed out. We will later on develop a special form to make requests for working on these methodological materials and requesting this textbook. Now I'm going to give the floor to Natalia Ustovska, who is the permanent member of our team of Ukrainian Academy of Mediation since the very beginning of our organization. And this year we celebrate the 10th anniversary of it. I'm very grateful to her for being with us. She was the editor of the first version of this textbook, and we continue working on this. And Natalia Mazraki joined our team. So the second edition will have 3 editors. So we're very grateful to all participants of this project. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear friends, supporters of mediation and supporters of teaching mediation at our educational establishments, because mediation and knowledge of the basics of mediation are needed to social workers, to people engaged into education, especially social educationalists, psychologists need it. Many professions would need this knowledge. Those which are subjective professions. So from person to person. I apologize. Zoom prompts me that I've switched to some other language. And, but I'm speaking Ukrainian, genuine. Currently, we have 235 participants. The issues of mediation is part of my activities for more than 20 years. And over these 20 years, irrespective of the audience, I always saw familiar faces. Everywhere I can find people who I know. Now, when I joined this virtual audience, and I don't know most of the people here, and I'm very happy because of that, because it means that there is an interest to mediation, to its teaching at the educational establishments, and to the work which our Ukrainian Academy of Mediation is doing. After Louisa, it's hard to add anything, but still I would take an effort and add something. And the major word which I'm going to use is expansion. What do I mean? The textbook, which has been completed and which we are preparing for printing, will keep this old title, which Louisa and myself gave to it at the beginning of teaching mediation at the National University Odessa Legal Academy. I'm not going to mention what extremely difficult efforts it took to persuade lawyers that they need that. So the title would be the same. So these two textbooks would have the same title. But the audience at which our efforts expanded aimed at making this textbook and methodological materials would definitely be broader. It could be used for not only for training masters of law, but for managers as well. Currently, the managers in conflict management being trained more and more for social workers. The social workers also do this social services, mediation, psychologists, practically for all who would like either to get certain knowledge in mediation or would like to become a mediator. And this textbook would be used at all training courses. So the expansion of the audience, expansion of the circle of the authors, because professional mediators joined us. If the first textbook was created by the faculty members of the universities, now real professional mediators are joining us. So there will also be practitioners in mediation. This is also expansion of topics represented in this textbook. In the previous textbook, there were 9 chapters. Now there are 10 chapters because the chapter dedicated to professional aspects of mediation was divided by us into 2 chapters. We added some content to it. So alongside with the renovation of the content related to adoption of the loan mediation on signing the Singapore Convention, though Ukraine has not yet ratified, but sooner or later this will happen. Ratification of Istanbul Convention, where this or that way the alternative ways of conflict resolution are mentioned. So the content will be renovated. And also there will be renovation of the content related to technical opportunities, the new technical opportunities, which were related to pandemics and the war. For instance, now we have such a chapter as online mediation. We decided that the mediators should have digital competency because many mediators currently work this mode And also, we revised the scientific approach in the textbook, as well as the content of methodological materials. More cases, more case studies, more practical exercises, more interesting practical issues, and even more graphical information, more pictures. We're going to renovate all those pictures related to conflict diagnostics. That is topics of mapping conflicts, as well as various other ways of diagnostics of conflicts, which the work of mediator begins with, and the work of everyone who is involved into the conflict resolution should begin with, not only mediator, but lawyers or social workers. So this is what I wanted to tell you, and I would like to share our impression, our thoughts, I mean, the authors of the textbook. And first of all, I would like to ask you all a question. Somebody, I think Erwin Shaw, wrote the novel, which was called Suffering and Happiness and Joys. You know, what suffering and what joys the authors of the textbook had. Whether there were moments when you were applauding and saying, "Yeah, I'm a big boy," or "I'm a big girl," or there was a moment when you were frustrated and couldn't explain, were not able to explain this or that, because I think that every researcher, every instructor or teacher or author knows that creative people are divided into those who write and those who speak, and those who can tell you in an excellent manner, perfectly explain you everything, but can't write this out. But there are different approaches, different people, and we were happy that among our authors, there are people who combine these both qualities. But maybe there were such problems. I had them, definitely. When I was in a sort of a mental stopped mentally, I couldn't explain very simply the different approaches to the problem of legal and social and the structure of the conflict. Difficult, but I think that maybe all had this sort of problems. You see, I told you about my problem. I think the others would follow the suit and share their happy and unhappy moments. Please. Olena Stanislavovna, please. Thank you, Natalia Mikolaevna. My greetings to all participants. I congratulate all the authors I'm happy to recollect the previous years when we gathered together in Odessa, when we were discussing, and that was those were the happiest days. A lot has been already said by my colleagues, but I would like that Natalia Nikolaevna has just said that there are creators who speak and who write, but probably you noticed in the program of our forum that there is some musical taste to this forum. So in this sense, I would like to speak about the textbook and the authors with whom I was happy to work. I could compare the authors of the textbook with the choir. And the textbook I would compare to the choir singing. Every author comes to the choir, every singer comes to the choir with certain experience, certain skills, and unique voice. And in the choir, the leader, the star or conductor is trying to coordinate the singing so it sounds in a coordinated manner, but at the same time preserving individual features of every singer. Also, would like to mention that in the choir singing, there is such a notion as chain breathing, which means that one singer follows the breathing of another singer, which creates a feeling of uninterrupted musical sound of singing. So coming back to our authors and the textbook, I would like to say that every author of the textbook also came with his or her own knowledge, understanding of mediation, practical experience. And thanks to organizers of this project, they functioned as conductors, combining various schools and approaches to mediation into a powerful harmonic sound. And the work of all these authors reminds me this chain breathing when the chapter written by one author is supported and followed up by another one. But the textbook reminds me the choral polyphony, where every author has his or her own party, own role. And now I'd like to say a couple of words on suffering, and happiness, and unhappiness. I think that writing a textbook is a big happiness together with a certain suffering. For me, suffering was related to what criteria to choose for the reader is to be interested in reading this textbook. So the first my criteria was information criterion, criterion. And it was quite difficult to maintain the balance of information so the text not to be overloaded. That was the first criterion. And I tried to present certain problems which would push the reader towards personal thinking and development of personal
The second criteria is the matter of practice. Previously, we heard from some of the speakers saying that when we read, we might get a different understanding. And that's what professionals often say, that uh, talk about assistance of a mediator. But people ask, what's assistance? Mediator gives advice on how to solve the conflict. Also, sometimes the mediator points out the reasons, who's wrong, who's right. So in this, the criteria uh, urged me to give as many examples as possible to make sure that theoretical material is easy to understand. Also, it was important to make sure that people could self-teach and work with the textbook on their own. The third important criteria, it's a visual criteria. And Natalia was mentioning today that there were lots of pictures, both in the first and second edition, to give lots of pictures, drawings, schematics, so that it helps people, help the students to um, learn the material better. Thank you, Elena. I have this idea that perhaps in the third edition, we should probably also add some music to our textbook. We should think about it, because music, pictures, and texts, they will definitely complement each other and help digest the material. Thank you. Marina Sayenka raised a hand. After Olena's speech, I'd like to say that Olena is a champion as far as the number of pictures provided and invested into this textbook. Well, I really appreciate this. And the comparison with chorus is very good, because when I was a child, I used to sing in a school choir. And when you mention this, indeed, I understand this comparison very well. Thank you. Marina, please. Thank you, Marina. Uh, I'm glad to be with you today. Let me try to respond very quickly to Natalia's question. Regarding the metaphor about the orchestra director, I often use this metaphor when I try to explain who mediator is, because mediator is indeed a conductor who conducts a symphony orchestra, for example, and trying to reach harmony between the sides. So this is indeed a good example, a good comparison. And the editors indeed created a very comprehensive and quality product, which reads as if it was created by one author. Now, as far as issues or challenges is concerned, in the first edition, I wrote the section on business mediation, and the biggest challenge was how to describe all the experience that I'd like to share with students on just a couple of pages. Because we understand the value, the biggest value right now is time. And my goal was not to let down the people who are investing their time into studying this and not to lose trust for mediation as a means of conflict solving. So it is clear that we improved business mediation section. We updated it, made it more modern, and now after the law has been passed, mediation in business is developing very quickly. New spheres are emerging. And the second challenge is uh, new mediation, because when I wrote this, it didn't quite indeed, but some of my colleagues have been using online mediation or even over the phone mediation. But we didn't know that COVID-19 was waiting in the wings, followed by the war. Now, online mediation is the main format, in fact. Now we have offline events, it almost become a rare occurrence. So while in the past we were not sure how to describe this, now it is hard to describe briefly, because the deeper you dig, the more details you need to describe. But you want to be practical too. So the second edition shows a fast evolution of the society and a good description of how it is perceived nowadays by the professional community. Now our work in the parliament was stepped up and the law was passed, and this is certainly the step in the right direction. What also was great was that we were able to collect a team of top-tier experts, both researchers and practitioners, and build a strong team of authors, because when I teach mediation, I also refer students to the textbook, and I can see uh, how people appreciate it. Thank you, Marina. I got a message from Zoom. So we will have to really go over the section dedicated to online mediation and to improve our skills in working with all the electronic gadgets. The floor is given to Olena Bilakin. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would like to also say that I was also part of the team of authors. And when the first edition was written, I was still a judge. In the second edition, I wrote the section about the role of judge in mediation. And I was trying to imagine the audience, the target audience. And for me, the main readers were either the acting professional judges or students who are training to be judges in the future. So I covered the relations between mediation and the judges. So to respond to your question, the joy of work was to see that right now the leadership uh, of traditional court process is no longer the case. And even though mediation is not part of the judge's skill, um, the serious judge will certainly understand the importance and the value of mediation in conflict settlement. So for me, it was a special joy to see that in our procedural code today, there is a special procedural uh, tools that make it possible for the parties to go through the mediation path. Now, it is with such a reader in mind that I highlighted procedural norms that give these opportunities for the judges. In particular, the judge during the court will offer for the parties to go the mediation path, and in fact, not only that, but also create conducive environment for them to do that. So for me, as a professional judge who administers justice for 20 years, it was important at this stage of the development of our society to see that we have specific procedural tools that give us an opportunity to inform the parties and basically promote the idea of mediation. Your question was, what were the challenges? Creative challenges are mostly about the relations, or rather the ratio between the work of the judge and the institute of settlement. Because when procedural codes were amended, and when the institute of dispute settlement involving the judge, I didn't have a chance to practice this, even though I was quite interested. And to that end, I studied case law, uh, court decisions. It was interesting, but my general conclusion was that based on codification, between 27 to 37% are the cases where dispute settlement was settled by either peace settlement or some other alternative way of settlement. However, practice shows that so far judges are mostly cautious about using this tool because it's hard to change the stereotype about the role of judges in dispute settlement, because they're used to playing more active role. But in mediation, the parties are mostly rely on the judge's initiative. So this was a little hard going for judges, perception. But getting back to what made this work a happy process or enjoyable process, it was great to be able to communicate to the reader the idea that mediation can be useful in cases where the consequences may be sensitive, such as family cases, for example, or reputational risks, such as business cases, for instance. Therefore, I geared the reader toward the idea that the judge can contribute to development of mediation by means of more active participation in the mediation process. So the judge can help realize the potential of mediation as a modern tool of peaceful, mutually beneficial way of dispute settlement. Thank you, Elena, very much. And now I'd like to pass on to Alina Sergeyevna, who represents several schools, both law and mediation. Please, Alina. Your microphone is off. Now you can hear me. I welcome everyone. I'd like to emphasize the importance of second edition of the mediation textbook. And I'd like to take the opportunity and thank Louisa for getting us all together in Odessa in 2019. And back then, it was very important because at the time, the Center for Mediation was already formed, but still something was lacking, like a general guideline or something. Because we studied in different countries, we were told by different teachers, and we had our own approach, and each had their own experience. And another important point that I'd like to emphasize is that we actually went further and realized that not all lawyers will want to be trained as mediators, but we should inform all of them and tell them about what mediation is about so that they understand it, and whether they are in-house lawyer or judge or a defense lawyer, at least they understand what it's all about. And this is one of the best steps that we as mediators did.
The second, I would like to underline that I like very much the motto of the European Union, that diversity in unity. So, and that this is not the textbook of not only one author, but sometimes when you read different chapters, you feel that these are different approaches. And this makes this textbook wonderful because you can find in one textbook visions of different authors. What was my challenge that time? That time, challenge was that I didn't have research experience. I had experience of practical training of mediation. I'm grateful to my colleagues who managed to help me to formulate my practical skills in more scientific terms. So now, concerning the second edition, I already have some scientific experience, and I remember that this textbook is for the students, and everything should be explained the most uh, understandable way, not to be too complicated. It's very important for them to understand everything. And also, this textbook had to be also understandable for any person, any lawyer who would read it. So that was a challenge to maintain the quite high level, both scientific and practical. So for if the judge of the Supreme Court looking at this textbook, not to say why it is so simple, or on the other hand, it should be very understandable for any student. And in terms of joy and happiness, I should say that I'm happy because we managed, thanks to the project USAID and Irina Zaretska, we managed to fulfill this work. And I'm very grateful to the team of authors and editors for these difficult times caused by the war to be able to find time and strength to do this work. So I'm very grateful to all who worked on this textbook. Thank you, Alina. Thank you for your participation, and thank you for your kind words and very good remarks. And I'm giving the floor to Katerina Narovska. Thank you, Natalia. I want to say that I also have experience of a choir singing, and for me it was interesting and pleasant, not only as for the instructor and mediator and the lawyer, but as for the president of National Association of Mediators. For me, it's a fantastic example of cooperation between mediators community and supposedly they're competitors, but people managed to work together on the development of mediation. Back in the past, I was happy because we were able to do that job. Now I understand very clearly that this information is available not only to lawyers, it is disseminated, it is causing a lot of interest, and just grassroots people could open this textbook and to read about the mediators' activities, methods, competencies, and people may be able to improve their life even without participation of mediators. And it's also it's a challenge when you explain this to lawyers. It's one thing. Another thing when you explain everything to the broad circles of people. And also at the same time, it was a challenge. You had to stop make a pause and to reflect on how this corresponds to my uh, faculty work at the university, to my trainer's work, and even more interesting it was to think on how to reflect at the level of feelings, intuition, and to describe all that in a uh, in a way that people understand this, how to formalize informal knowledge and to make it understandable. So mediation is a solution which could be described as a win-win situation. And my work was to share all these views and thoughts with my colleagues, and my attempts to transform these intangible emotional things into the words, Natalia helped me a lot. So for me, it was both a success and certain level of learning how to formulate my thoughts properly. Lots of thoughts come into my mind, but I'd like the others also to be able to express their opinions. Anyway, I'm very grateful for the interest of this work, for the number of people present here, 240, and for the whole idea. I'd like to thank the Ukrainian Academy of Mediation to be tolerant about our pauses. There was another challenge, was sort of a general slowness. We had to adjust, to approximate external and internal resources. So thank you for the support and for organizing this process. Thank you, Katerina. It was my pleasure to work with you, a real pleasure. There is no overestimation. And I'm giving the floor to Natalia Kovalko, whose chapter opens the textbook. That's the theory of conflict. My greetings to everyone, dear friends. Yes, I'm very happy that we're all friends. I want to say that today, during this forum, I noticed that all the time I'm smiling. Maybe this is because of the stress, but anyway, I think that in the conditions under which we Ukrainians live, irrespective of where we are, we all feel the stress. And today's situation makes us happy because we've been waiting for this day for a very long time. The textbook was created and published in 2019. I want to tell you that I like it very much. I keep it on my desk in my office. This is not just advertising. This I'm speaking about practical use of this textbook, and I believe that all the authors are influencers in mediation because everything which was done by everyone could be described as the whole history of this work. And since 2019, we all were dreaming about the law on mediation to be functional. And now Ukraine has a functional law on mediation, and I think that every author used to think that this textbook would be not just a textbook, but sort of a practical result of practical work and a result of a reflection on legislation. And I teach at the National Taras Shevchenko University. And I must say that I'm sending the references to this textbook all the time. But you know, you always remember the first night. So the first night was this textbook, and the second edition will be extremely interesting, not only to lawyers, to psychologists, to HRs, to those who work for compliance services, even to the security. I work at the NAC Naftogaz company. I should say that everybody knows about mediation, that the issues of mediation is part of our everyday life. What was challenging under current conditions, we all have certain internal loneliness, a lack of strength. But when we work, when we do something, we want our work to be completed as soon as possible. And this, I would like to thank my colleagues and I want to say that I used to ask them all the time, when this textbook will be published, so that I'm able to tell my colleagues and to show to my colleagues this book. I'm also happy that with this textbook, the standards of Masters of Law training has improved, and currently the Masters of Law get skills on alternative conflict resolution, and they can use these skills and knowledge in the work with their clients, with their colleagues. I must say that I like very much my time dedicated to conflicts. That our life is full of conflicts, and our internal conflict is caused by the external situation in which Ukraine is now, and all this influences all spheres of life, personal and professional. For us, it's very important to know what are these conflicts, to put diagnosis to those conflicts. I'm grateful to the team whose graphic work helps to put diagnosis to the conflict. Also grateful to those who worked on the issues of mediation in professional work of defense lawyers, for example, because I'm a practicing defense lawyer. And for me, it's also sort of my personal part of my personal job. Currently, a lot of defense lawyers study mediation, use mediation in their professional life, as well as they use services of mediators, which very much correlates with the ethics of defense lawyers, because defense lawyers should put maximum efforts to regulate the conflict pre-trial. And also important that private executors also are using mediation in their professional activities. So I tried to describe all this in this textbook. I hope that it was done professionally, and the readers would evaluate how this was done. And I want to say thank you very much to those who participated in these processes. And I think that we've done a very good job, which would help Ukraine to transform the culture of dialogue, and most of the conflicts and disputes be resolved effectively and before trials. Thank you, Natalia. The time is running. And maybe the final word. I will give the floor to Ruslan Havraluk for the final word. We can also use about 15 minutes more after that. Thank you for this clarification. Please, Ruslana. Thank you for this opportunity. I will try to be concise. First of all, I would like to express sincere gratitude to every author, as well as those who inspired this work and who combined all this and made this textbook a really good textbook, useful to our clients, to our students. As for me, and this is a fundamental work of a systemic and structural nature, which has a number of peculiar features. And one of them is that the editors allowed every author to be heard and to express, to demonstrate his or her vision. And it's very important. Also, about positive and negative, I felt a lot of trust, confidence to the authors by the editors. What was easy or difficult for me? Everything was practically was easy. I was in my own atmosphere. To whom it was difficult to the editors, definitely, because they had to combine everything and to adjust all these opinions and thoughts. And this work definitely took a lot of efforts. What is also important for me, I'm grateful to this textbook that because of this textbook at Chernivtsi National University, we managed to successfully pass the accreditation of educational specialization mediation for the term of 5 years. And now we are, for the 4th year, we've been teaching lawyers, mediators. Extremely grateful to you for this, because that was a very real, very powerful support. Also would like to say, maybe it was certain difficulty, but at the same time, for me, it was not hard. My key idea before I chose the topic on what I would like to write, it was important for me not to lose myself. And I think that students are the people who develop, who improve. And I know that they're ready to receive, to accept very complicated information. And this both challenge and a wish to demonstrate to every student what mediation is. To help them how to resolve conflicts. I don't know whether I managed to do that, but I tried to do that. And also today in the first part, Professor Mar Shapiro mentioned the principle of human dignity, which he is trying to implement the International Organization of Mediation. For me, it was very nice to hear this, because over the recent 5, 6, or 7 years, I've been trying to introduce the idea of human right for mediation. I'm very grateful to the editors for helping me with this. Thank you, Ruslana. The principle of respect to human dignity is really a cornerstone of our work.
It is very good that you mentioned this. Olha, please. Thank you for the opportunity to join this meeting. I will be responding to questions that you raised about what was the most challenging part and what was the easiest part. You know, it was really enjoyable to go back to the days when I was just learning mediation and when I was involved in cases for administrative challenge. And it was basically my first urge to study mediation and use it in complex situations. And it was great pleasure to actually reminisce about all this. Because in the past, I was a big fan of mediation in administrative cases, but later on, our experience sort of cooled me off a little bit, and I gained a lot of experience. So going back to those days was a great pleasure for me, and I've been trying to contribute some statistical data and analyze the prior experience. And I was glad I kept a lot of notes that came in handy as I was writing my chapter. And because the legislation changes quite often, one has to stay rather flexible and update the tools and the methods, and the level that was achieved by the first team of the textbook uh, was to be kept high and glowing. Now, regarding what was challenging, is that, well, since I represent Chernihiv University, and the people whom I train for lawyers, it's called use it in plain language. So say it in plain language. And you know, I actually got quite good at it. And it's important to be able to explain in plain language, but writing it in a textbook, that was challenging, I have to admit. And because it's written text, not an oral conversation or an explanation. So this was not easy. So thank you again, and my personal experience that I contributed toward this textbook, I attempted to describe, and I hope this will grow and develop. And it is great that this country is planning to use mediation more often. And you basically, the work on this textbook sort of gave this topic a new life, and was a great opportunity for me to reminisce about the old days when I was also learning and studying, and it was a great opportunity to cross-fertilize with my colleagues. And hopefully, the textbook will be useful to all the readers and students. Well, I hope that the second mediation, second edition will be useful. Oksana Yaremko, please, over to you. Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be part of this. I was part of writing the section on social space. What was challenging for me and what was easy? Well, it was quite challenging to identify legal competencies and media competencies for future social workers and psychologists was rather challenging. When I was writing my section, the question arose, whom should I address the theoretical knowledge for what types of individuals? And that was the idea, because it was hard to uh, identify what was easy for lawyers, psychologists, and future social workers, and what is challenging. Now, what was also quite positive is that as a social service, mediation is quite relevant and in big demand today, especially for individuals who find themselves in difficult, vulnerable circumstances. They need this social service. That's why in my section, I try to reveal this mechanism and describe the authority of all subjects involved in the process, whether it's organizing or rendering the service, but also uh, ensuring that the right for mediation is enforced. So in my section, I attempted to cover this and explain how this mechanism can be used and how to defend your rights, and what territories, uh, what regions offer this service, because it is important that the mediation remains only theoretically as an available service, but we need to make sure that it is available in practice. Thank you. Thank you, Oksana. Indeed, this section was lacking, and I agree, it's an important section. Yuri, the floor is yours. Yuri is probably one of the best experts in this field, and I believe we were very lucky to have him on our team. Please. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts. I have personal experience on mediation and renewed justice, since 2004. In 2010, I defended my master's thesis. I also participated in many trainings, workshops in the US, Switzerland, Poland, as well as in Ukraine, involving international and national experts. I also have practical experience of mediation in criminal cases. It is a great pleasure to be part of such a uh, highly professional team of authors. And with Natalia Christovska, we worked on two sections on historical alternatives of conflict settlement. Also, we worked on mediation as a renewed justice. Now, regarding the weak spots and the or the challenges and the easy parts, well, the format of the textbook creates an opportunity to share different approaches and analyze the ongoing discussion still uh, available and going on around mediation. The logistics of writing the textbook was rather enjoyable because it was teamwork. Things and processes were organized well. And I'd like to thank Natalia Krestovska for leading this effort because she organized the work very well. And she shared her vision. The first the mediation by lawyers, of course, are used in Stefanik University, and the topic of mediation within various subjects that we train our students in are taught at all three levels: bachelor's, master's, and doctorate level. So that's why this textbook is in high demand. And I'm sure the updated version, the new edition of the textbook, will be welcomed by the students and will be useful not only in their professional training, but also in promoting mediation as a renewed justice in generally. I thank you for your attention. Thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to work with my colleagues. Thank you. Thank you, Yuri. And perhaps just a few words to wrap up from the presentations and the issues that the questions that were posted in the chat. I noticed that the format of our work was chosen wisely. I am now even more convinced that the textbook will gain in popularity, and all the team of authors will welcome the feedback from both students and university teachers so that we could improve the quality of teaching, of mediation both for lawyers and non-lawyers. And today's presentation of the textbook is not the end. It's, in fact, only the beginning of the long process of introducing mediation in training experts in management, social work, and amongst the bar. Thank you very much.